Hey, this is Anthony Meisner at Land Title. I came to bring you your Greater Denver Metro update. And we're looking at January data here as it's come in, and we are in a rising inventory environment, right? There's no doubting that. We've kind of been looking at that over the course of the last year. And here we are 41% up above where we were this time last year. You know, our under contracts in December came in kind of slow, but they're right back up there with some optimism in the marketplace, right? So as we're kind of seeing the year kick off to a pretty good start, the only thing we really have major concerns about is what are we going to do with this extra units of inventory? You know, we're over 2,000 units above where we were this time last year, and we peaked over 10,000 last year. So easily we could trend above that pretty rapidly. Now, where have we seen the biggest change? Now, I think this is really interesting because year over year, Broomfield's only up 11%, but somewhere like Arapahoe County up 49% in inventory. So most of the markets are in that 30 to 40 range. I think it's really interesting to kind of take a look at some of those slight changes there. But if you look at new listings coming to market, we've had 4,000 come to market this month. That's 1,000 more than we had this time last year. You've seen most of it take place at 25% increase across the board, most markets, but big increases in Elbert County and Jefferson County. So cool stuff happening, but it is something you need to be cautious about if you're a seller, right? Because it is going to be more competitive this year. We're starting the year at 2 months of inventory, and if you're working with sellers, this is still a seller's market, but it may not be a seller's market for long. In Denver Metro, it probably feels a lot like balanced market around 3 months of inventory. And, we're getting there and we will get there this year for sure. Now, some markets like Broomfield at 1.68 months of inventory or Jefferson at 1.55 months of inventory are strong sellers markets still. So you definitely have the ability to get stuff sold there and do it aggressively, where other markets maybe you don't. Now, days in MLS, this is very different than the month supply. We've got 60 days in MLS. It's one of the highest days in MLS we've seen in a long time. That's active to under contract time. You're going to see this take place over the course of the year where it's going to trend down from here, and then we'll trend back up like we do every year. It should look a lot like a horseshoe, right? So if you are working with buyers and they think they have 2 months to figure it out, the good houses don't always sell in the average, right? There's a reason it's an average. And you can really see that stuff that is not dialed in, not buttoned up, not priced right, is sitting a little bit longer. But even during that saddle of the market, expected to be somewhere in the 30s this year. We're just probably not going to get down to under 30 like we have in the last few years. As that inventory starts to rise, it does take longer to sell, especially when buyer behavior is pretty similar. Now, active units and sold units by price range. I like this one if you're working with buyers or sellers to help set the stage for what they should feel. Now, the interesting part about what's happening, 1 to 2 million up 22.5%, 800 to 900,000 sold are up 27%. The 3+ million market, 130% increase, right? Because if you remember, we have a pretty big slowdown. It looks like some optimism in this market is really coming back in that market, but the bulk of the houses, that 4 to 800 range, only up somewhere around 8% in sales. So good to see. Now, where's the inventory coming? The bulk of the inventory increase that's sitting on the market more. You're seeing more from 3 to 500,000. So that's a big change from years past. Now, if you look at month supply of inventory and days on market by price range, this also can help really tell some of that story. If you're doing luxury sales, there's just more inventory. Month supply is up 4, 6 months, right? These are really going to start to feel like buyers markets here very soon, because with more inventory coming on the market and the sellers are going to stay fairly constant through the spring buying season, or really what's become a winter buying season, you're going to see consistency from buyers, but not sellers, right? So sellers will tend to stack up. You're going to see more month supply of inventory, but the rest of the market at 2 months, that's going to be great, right? So that's a good market for sellers, even though if it does take a little bit longer to get your house sold at 50 days, 60 days. Average sales price. So this is one that I think it needs to be talked about a little bit. How do we articulate this to our buyers and our sellers, right? Is real estate a good purchase? So you see the history here, right? We're looking at about 13 years worth of data from 2012 to current. And you can see just because prices sort of slipped a little bit in the last year, but they didn't have that seasonal downturn like a lot of times we see, that makes it so we're up 3% in the last year. But what happens when you compare this to years and years and years ago, right? This chart can really articulate the sense in 13 years, we went from $300,000 to $750,000 as our average sales price for detached single family. Even in a really hard year, we went up $20,000 year over year. So the markets are still doing remarkably well. It's a really good change. Now, if you look at the attached market, this has been a much harder market. Now, over time, is real estate a good buy? Very clearly the same argument. But in the last year, we have seen prices compress quite a bit, and we've seen 5% drop in sales price year over year because it's becoming less and less desirable, right? A lot of this is affordability issues, right? We have insurance issues, we're having HOAs increase, we're having deferred maintenance costs go up. We just don't build enough condos anymore, so we just don't have the product we used to, but we have a lot of townhouses, and it's just a different landscape than it used to be. So as this is a harder product, as this is a less desirable product in some cases, it just won't feel the appreciation in a hard time. We saw the same thing happen in '08. We're seeing it right now. Will it bounce back? Absolutely it will. So is it a bad time to buy real estate? No. I think there could be some opportunity here, but just be cautious about this because you're probably chasing prices down again this year without anything changing in the interest rate environment. Now, take a look at this. Real estate is definitely doing better than it was a year ago. We had a really long plateauing season last year, but check it out. January is up almost 10% year over year, so that's a good sign. February will fall short with those under contract numbers we saw last month be a little weird. But as we kind of work through our year, we're going to have a really great year, and you're going to start to see this. So this is exciting news. I love to see this. That's a fun one to share out. So if you need a slide to share out, this is a good dose of optimism right now in the beginning of the year. If you're using the list of sale price, this is a good way to set expectations around what's happening in some of this market. So 98.6% listed sale price, pretty similar to this time last year. You can see that we're out of those COVID years. It's a good way to help show that. And you can see when homes are getting the most for those sales, right? So 98.6% now, probably closer to 100% by March, April, May. And that's usually the peak season for selling. So that's when detached single family homes are going to trade the best, right? So that's when you're going to get the most money for it. And, if you look at the attached market, really not that much different. So you have this either way if you need it. The higher into the luxury market you get, the more likely you are to see a little bit of this come off the top, right? 2 to 3 million last month was at 91%. 3+ million was at 97% for the attached market. There just aren't a lot of sales up there, so they do bounce around a little bit. Don't forget, if you need highlights and you forget everything I said in this video, here they are for you. And we'll catch you next time. If you have any other questions, concerns, you need any other market data, I'm Anthony Meisner at Land Title. See you later.